right. Here's the only positive facts I've been able to find regarding the Japanese Nikkei close. It is the only Asian market, in fact, ending with a gain today. And I think the rumors have some merit of intervention. That's just my opinion. Now, that said, the faxer goes on to say the Tuesday New York Stock Exchange opening is going to be higher on the bell because the overnight trading on the S&P futures is up. But to this faxer, I would point out that the S&P futures were up on Sunday night, Monday morning before this bloodbath. So that's not necessarily an indicator of what's going to happen. I guess if you want to think positive, you can sure think that it might be so, and it might be so. But the S&P futures being up right now surely does not guarantee an up day for Wall Street, though we can all hope. Now, Ed Dames is here, and as I said, they don't call him Dr. Doom for nothing. Ed's just getting started. Ed, welcome back.
Thank you.
Ed, when was it that you predicted that the next nuke used in anger would be North Korea?
About 10 months ago, I believe.
About 10 months ago, huh?
Yes.
Have you ever talked to Richard Hoagland?
No.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with his Mars data.
Right.
And but I have not talked with him. I've offered to, many years ago, we offered to remote view some of what he called artifacts on Mars, but he did not avail himself of that offer.
All right. Then in that case, this will be the first time that the two of you actually have spoken, I guess. Here is Richard Hoagland, and he's got some news of his own. Richard, it's been too long. How you doing?
Good evening, Art.
And Ed's here, too.
And hi, Ed.
Hi.
We have not talked. Our paths have crossed very close many times.
That's correct.
Yeah, the reason I sent you this note tonight, Art, is that I've been working since Saturday morning on something that looks initially extremely tangential, but in fact appears to be converging on the topic tonight and on events in the world, both east and west.
All right.
We have a president, as you have laid out, who seemingly is off on a wild goose chase into Moscow.
While the barn burns.
Well, the barn burning here appears to be traceable in part to events going on in Moscow.
In part.
Okay. I have been, as you know, pursuing a kind of a broad front investigation looking at NASA, looking at potential, I'll use the C word, conspiracies by a small cadre. As this investigation has proceeded, we have brought more and more people into our orbit, including some very reliable former NSA people.
Right.
Some of whom actually may know Ed personally, and maybe not. Beginning in the last couple of weeks with the incredible debacle in Washington, we have been very focused on trying to penetrate the agenda underneath what's on CNN. And as you know from a couple of faxes I sent you, we have a very interesting thread of evidence that at some point I would like to present. That would be tangential to tonight. What really has focused me on the events of the last, 12 hours is that I worked, as you know, closely with David Oates since you did the first reversals with him on the NASA guys about a year ago.
Yep.
And David and I have kept in touch on things that I thought were relevant to our investigation. And I specifically had him tape a lot of things before the weekend having to do with press conferences, Albright, the National Security Advisor, the head of the FBI, and Muammar Gaddafi. Because as you know, we're looking in part at things that seem to stem from the Middle East, from Egypt. Well,
okay, no offense here, Richard, but I'm going to have to ask you to hurry.
Okay.
I'm going to have to say that what you sent me in a fax had nothing to do with reverse speech, at least according to the fax. What you said is
well,
that
if you look
have...
at the bottom of the second page, in fact, it does. That's what tipped me off to talk to my NSA sources who confirmed what is
okay, that's what I want to get to.
Okay.
You've got NSA sources.
Yes.
That say what?
All right. They say that today's Korean missile test was not a test. that in fact it was a failed attempt to take out a Japanese nuclear reactor, and for some reason two shots, not one missile, but two, failed.
It was two missiles?
It was
Now,
two
at
missiles.
first I heard it was a single-stage missile, they reported, that came down in between Korea and Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Then the latter report said, no, it was a two-stage missile. Stage 1 went in between Korea and Japan, and Stage 2 went over Japanese airspace and into the drink.
Well, I mean, look, if you haven't declared war against Japan, does it make any sense that you're going to fire a missile that you know is going to go over? I mean, your Cuba, Florida analogy was very appropriate.
So what you're saying is you've got, I'm sorry,
My sources
reverse speech is very cute, but I don't want to make this kind of an announcement based on somebody's reverse speech. If you have NSA sources saying these were two attempts to explode a Japanese reactor,
yes,
then that's a fish of a different color.
Which, of course, really brought up Ed, because if you were successful, you would have a nuclear event in the Far East triggered by the Japanese. Triggered by the North Koreans, and there would obviously be some kind of response from Japan's ally, which is us.
Boy, that's a hell of a thing to say.
Where this gets back to Gaddafi is that Gaddafi is calling for a nuclear Hajj, and a majority of the population of North Korea, Art, is Muslim.
Yes, I'm aware.
He is also in cahoots with a key general in Moscow. He is calling for a coup of the comrades. And there is a specific reference to they are going for the president.
Yeah, I would say that's quite likely in view of the fact that last time Parliament didn't do what Yeltsin wanted. He had tanks there shelling it and blew them to smithereens and won that way. Now, with the rejection of the Prime Minister, he might be tempted to do exactly the same thing, only this time they're going to imagine he's going to do it, and they're going to try and act first.
Well, we have a president over there tonight in a very touchy situation.
Yeah, I don't think he ought to be there.
We have from Lebedov 100 nukes, suitcase nukes, somewhere running around the Soviet Union. All it would take is one, and suddenly we are decapitated.
Yeah.
And this is a situation that needs to be considered. Given the accuracy of the obvious Korean discussion that Ed had 10 months ago, given the Muslim component of the population, given the fragility of the world economies and what would happen if there was a successful assassination attempt that not only destabilized the Soviet Union or Russia, but also took out, the head of our government simultaneously. The time frame, by the way, according to our analysis of the calendar we keep working on, the critical time period is Thursday morning, which is when they are going to have a joint news conference in Moscow.
That's correct.
If I were recommending things to this president, I would say get on Air Force One and get out of there now.
Yeah, that's my instinct as well. Richard, thank you.